I want to thank everyone for joining our webinar to look at the impact of the midterm elections on broadband policy and on the competitive broadband industry. I want to welcome all those who have joined us. The past year has been one that has seen significant historic funding levels come in through the broadband infrastructure bill that has created tremendous interest, tremendous excitement, and a national commitment coming out of the pandemic to bring broadband connectivity to every American. And so as we look at the outcomes of the midterms, we're looking at the context, or in the context of what does it mean for those goals, those objectives, and for the industry that INCOMPAS represents and advocates for. As everybody who's been watching, we have not had an election this close or a Congress this divided since about 1917. There have been a couple other times that have been almost as close or just about as close. But if you could have a Senate at 50-50 today, the possibility of going to 51-49, it looks like in the House that you may see a Republican majority around 221 with a majority of 218, so only a 3-seat to 4-seat majority when all things in all elections are finally settled. So across the country, we're about as equally divided, or you could say equally balanced, that we have been in the last century. If you look at the governor's races, 26-24, the state-wide leadership at the gubernatorial level is also pretty equally divided. Why is that important? Because much of the infrastructure funding now goes to the states for the administration and the award of the grants. Now, let me step back before we get into what I think are the consequences of the election, to simply introduce who we are as INCOMPAS. We turned 40 years, or we celebrated our 40th anniversary as an association and as the founder of promoting competition policy in telecommunication and technology networks. Over the past year, we've seen tremendous growth, over 20 new members. We represent the new entrants, the new competitors, the new technologies, and it goes from fiber to fixed wireless, to 5G, to satellite providers. So every imaginable network that is being deployed today is represented in our membership. It's what makes INCOMPAS unique and distinct. We're also very proud to have the leading over-the-top and streaming and content companies, whether that is Netflix or Twitter, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, Google, because they are driving the demand that is creating the new economics to build new networks. And that coalition of both content and network builders and wholesale competitors really does give us the ability to advocate in a way that is different than any other association. So with that introduction first, what I think are the ways is that it makes big controversial legislation very difficult. And so any legislation that is going to come before Congress over the next 2 years will need bipartisanship and agreement. The partisan issues will continue as everybody positions for the 2024 elections. But from a policy point of view, the good news for our industry and for our members is that broadband speeds increasing, broadband deployments going up is not only good for the economy, good for the consumer, but it also lifts all boats. And it's one of the rare areas of bipartisan consensus. In the infrastructure bill, we were the first association to endorse the Bennett-King-Portman Bridge Act that was eventually the framework that was adopted in the legislation. We worked very closely with the Commerce Department, NTIA, with Alan Davidson and all of his staff to then help guide the parameters of the BEAD Act and the affordability and equity provisions. And now as it goes to the states, Mignon Clyburn and I will be continuing the campaign that we started over 2 years ago, but now state by state and as well as on the federal level, to continue to advocate for greater competition, for higher speeds, wholesale competition as you go state by state. And as we look at these election results, what are the possible outcomes? We think that it increases the likelihood that Gigi Sohn will be confirmed as the third Democrat and to provide a full FCC commission. So as we go through the maps and the challenges, we think that the broadband issues related to funding in coordination between the FCC and the Commerce Department and the respective states will have a strong ally in Gigi if in fact she does get confirmed. On December the 6th, Georgia will have the runoff election between Senator Warnock and Herschel Walker. That race will also either increase the likelihood of Gigi's confirmation, or it could make it more difficult. So watch closely what will happen on the December 6th election in Georgia. If I were to lay odds right now, I would give Senator Warnock a narrow advantage of winning that, and Democrats going from 50 to 51, which makes nominations and confirmations in the Senate much more easier, either in the lame duck session or in the first quarter of next year. It does not change the legislative filibuster number of getting to 60, but it does make confirmations and nominations easier in the future. The House, with a new majority, but a very narrow majority, I think on both the House and Senate side, you'll see more oversight on the broadband issues and on broadband infrastructure, oversight to make sure that it's being implemented in a correct way that meets the objectives and the commitments that Congress intended. Possible areas of bipartisanship that will affect our industry will be possibly on the privacy side, possibly on antitrust, where you've seen a lot of activity over the last 2 years. There'll be efforts to create bipartisan coalitions. Those are big issues, important issues that could affect both sides of the market. Spectrum policy is one other area where I think bipartisanship in Congress that will look at how do we extend the authorization of spectrum auctions, any particular bands that may be included in that, what is the pipeline that we could create for 5G and the race against China for 5G deployments, and any other type of ways to incentivize federal agencies to share their spectrum or to more efficiently use or make available to the needs of the wireless industry as we go forward. It will be an opportunity, both I think on the House and the Senate side, for our industry to continue to bring solutions to members on a bipartisan basis. But as I look at this very narrow divide in Congress, it makes it the administration and the commission much more pivotal players now in the implementation and the execution of the BEAD program and affordable and equity provisions of the infrastructure bill is where we will be as an association really focusing as we go forward. I do think that with a full commission that it'll be one more pro-competitive. It can look at the proceedings underway now on 12 gigahertz, and with a full commission, more likely to bring that to some resolution in the first half of next year. And so we're excited about what it means for our industry. We've had tremendous legislative and funding initiatives through the pandemic that has really reshaped and gives us the opportunity over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years to transform connectivity to every American. So we actually think that this outcome does not disrupt that, but in fact helps us achieve the objectives that we've been promoting over the last 3, 4 years. That's a short recap of where we see the midterms going, and we'd like to open it up if anybody has any questions about any of the issues or the policies or the consequences of the midterm elections. Now, let me talk a little bit about the leadership of the committees. And on the Senate side, Senator Cantwell, Senator Lujan will continue to be in the leadership positions for the majority. We're very fortunate to have good relationships on a bipartisan basis on the Senate Commerce Committee, and we look forward to working with the continued leadership. Senator Wicker, who has been the ranking and previously the chairman of the Senate Commerce Committee, is likely to go to the Armed Services Committee, but will continue to be on the Senate Commerce Committee. Then on the House side, we will see Bob Latta continue on the subcommittee, and we'll continue to work with key allies on the House on a bipartisan basis. Again, a very narrow majority in the House side, bipartisanship on our issues on the broadband provisions. We think will continue both House and Senate. With new leadership coming to the House, with Pelosi stepping down, it will make way for a new generation of leaders on the House side. We believe that Congressman Jeffries is well positioned to win the race to be the next minority leader of the House. But what does that mean as you look forward to 2024, where we think a new generation of leaders will be, I think the country is ready on both sides on a bipartisan basis to see in the next 2 years a major shift to a new generation. As we've never had on the House and Senate side, leadership all in their mid 70s to 80. And as you look at all the different public polling, I think that you'll see a shift in a demand to go to a new set of leaders for the country, and hopefully a new generation of leaders as we go to 2024. Any other questions? I see we have about 4 on the bottom of the screen. So one of the questions is, will the House Republicans be more likely to promote legislative efforts to remove barriers to deployment or streamline the permitting, the rights of way, and many of the issues that across the broadband industry associations and across both sides of the aisle has been an important issue. And we do think that the House Republican majority will be looking at ways to streamline or remove the barriers. As you combine the huge infusion of federal funds with a streamlining and a deployment agenda, we think it makes the deployment more cost-effective, more economic, and helps accelerate the goals of the Infrastructure Act. And so we will be working with House leadership on a bipartisan basis to promote a deployment and streamlining effort. And we do think that the new majority in the House will be receptive to that. So the next question is about Gigi Sohn's nomination. If she's not able to be confirmed in the lame duck, will she need to be renominated? And I believe the answer to that is yes. If Senator Warnock wins and you're at 51, the likelihood of both Gigi and other Democrat nominees to other agencies and judicial nominees become much, much easier than at the 50-50. But it also, I think, if we see on December 6th, Senator Warnock winning, it may create momentum to go ahead and move in the lame duck as many nominees as possible. So December 6th will be a critical date. The outcome of the race in Georgia will be very important to Gigi's confirmation and the likelihood of whether she'll be confirmed or not. So the next question is, what FCC-related oversight investigation topics do you expect the House to undertake? I think the first line of oversight as it relates to the infrastructure bill will just be how the states are preparing. Are the maps accurate? Can the challenges be done in a way that, from our perspective, we hope would be expedited and accelerated, so that you don't have the gaming and the delaying of the broadband grants being awarded at the state level. So the oversight of the execution of the broadband funding, the oversight of the maps will continue to be a focus of both, I believe, the House and the Senate as we go forward. There'll continue to be, we think, oversight initiatives looking at the leading tech companies, many of which are members, and the scrutiny that they're under, both on the House and the Senate side, we think will continue into the next Congress. And the question will be, will you have some breakthroughs legislatively around privacy? What will happen in the antitrust arena as it relates to the leading tech companies? And then on 230 and content moderation, with a new owner of Twitter, we'll see how those debates and oversight hearings that have been pretty hot and heated over the last 2 years, we believe some will be resolved in the next 2 years, and others will continue to be very hotly contested, and the oversight of in those areas will continue. USF reform. How do we modernize the USF? What are the different options, both at the FCC and in Congress? Could be an issue that will receive a lot of attention, and we've been very active with INCOMPAS of trying to propose solutions and to be constructive and build good coalitions so that the USF not only can continue its very important mission, but be sustainable for the long term. And what is the best way to do so? That is what we also think will be a very important area for the House and the Senate. We expect to see hearings and oversight in that general area. While I have a chance, we have been not only running a campaign on that we refer to as the Broadland Campaign, where Mignon Clyburn and I co-chair that, but our policy team, led by Angie Cronenberg, has just produced a major paper by Analysis Mason that shows $120 billion of investment in our infrastructure, in our fiber and data centers and digital infrastructure, so that the streaming and over-the-top applications, both in business and in entertainment and information, those investments were captured in the analysis and in the study, and both internationally, globally, and at home. How do we fight against efforts, for example, in South Korea, that would have imposed new fees and access fees? Here at home, whether it's franchise fees or taxes or other ways to increase the cost on our tech sector at a time we think could be harmful both to inflation, to the consumer, to the economic demand that goes into the building of new networks. And so we'll continue to work on those issues. And we believe that we'll see both congressional initiatives here at home, and continued international threats of trying to raise taxes or fees on the tech sector, on the over-the-top and streaming the services. And we'll be making the case not only of why that's harmful to the economy, the consumer, but also harmful to broadband investment. You know, and the last question is on potential blockers for spectrum policy. We'll watch very closely in the lame duck session the possibility of an extension of spectrum authority. Will that be a simple and clean authorization? Will it be a short-term or a long-term? Will it be comprehensive? And right now, the election outcomes could make it more likely to see a shorter-term, simple authorization extension, and the new majority in the House may want to take a more comprehensive approach on spectrum policy coming into the new Congress. It's too early to tell. We'll know more once Congress comes back after Thanksgiving. The omnibus appropriation, disaster supplemental nominations will get a lot of attention in the lame duck. We expect Congress to go to December 23rd, right before Christmas. Spectrum policy, either spectrum light or spectrum heavy, will be determined to a certain degree in the lame duck. I think the odds are greater that you'll see spectrum reform on a broader, more comprehensive basis in the next Congress. And it is one area where I think bipartisanship is possible. I would like to do one thing before we end, and I appreciate everybody's time today. We will be having our policy summit on March the 7th. Last year, we had what I considered to be some of the best speakers, most comprehensive, both commission, administration, Congress leaders, policymakers. So I encourage everyone to sign up for our policy summit March the 7th. The new Congress, hopefully a full commission, will be in place, and the ability to continue the momentum of the broadband and competitive broadband industry is very, very critical. And we've been very fortunate, and I'm very thankful that our policy summit, I think, has been a very effective voice for the competitive broadband industry. And so we invite everyone to join us on March the 7th. Our next fall show is going to be in Tampa. We're just now coming off a show in Denver that was one of the best we've had in the last 7 to 8 years, which shows the success of the competitive broadband industry, its growth is reflected in the association, the interest, the attendance, the speakers. We'll continue to see in Tampa next October a lot of interest as we're seeing the historic levels of both private investment in broadband networks and the federal funding that by next year we hope to be coming into the marketplace. I appreciate all of y'all's time. I look forward to working with our members in the advocacy and to be the voice for competition for years to come, and to see the broadband vision of being able to connect every American in business to fast, affordable, high-capacity networks continue as we go into the new Congress in the next year. So thank you all. Happy Thanksgiving.